On Friday, Houston Chronicle senior columnist Lisa Falkenberg wrote about some HISD early elementary school teachers, current and former, who are frustrated by Superintendent Mike Miles' new education system. The curriculum, while designed to teach reading skills, leaves little time for actual reading from books. As Falkenberg writes, teachers say that with few exceptions, the only stories allowed in the early grades are minced into dry text that teachers read from manuals, and that the few approved books focus on phonics. Superintendent Miles responded Monday in an article of his own on LinkedIn, saying Falkenberg's column, quote, reveals a fundamental lack of expertise in curriculum instruction and the science of how students learn. Lisa Falkenberg joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
I guess we should first lay out what you wrote in your column Friday. You begin by describing an apparent effort in one third-grade classroom to carve out time for students to read from books other than the state-approved materials. How are they doing so?
Right. When I first heard parents talk about this a few weeks ago, I couldn't even believe it. I said, what are you saying? They're saying kindergarteners cannot have books. Teachers can't read to them. They can't, look at picture books. I didn't understand. I knew that libraries had been closed, but I didn't know it was to this level. And so then I talked to a young girl who described how her teacher wanted to read The Tale of Despereaux by Kate DiCamillo. It's an amazing book. And in order to do that, they had this little drill where they would put a stack of worksheets under the book. And then when the teacher gave the signal, they would immediately put the book in the desk and start doing the worksheets. So how do we get to a point in HISD where to read children's literature, you have to sneak around like it's some secret plot? I wanted to find out.
All right. And what did you find out?
I think the idea is that, as we all know, this curriculum that Mike Miles wants to follow wants to be carefully measured and carefully timed to the point of literal buzzers that go off when the kids are supposed to be moving on. And so the teachers tell me that in that very tight structure, they are unable to fit in Frog and Toad, Charlotte's Web, because Frog and Toad and Charlotte's Web are not on the quizzes. Now there's a quiz, yes, kindergarten people, first grade. After every lesson, there are quizzes called DOLs, demonstrations of learning, and those test the kids on the content that is in the curriculum. So if you take a minute to read some inspiring, book by E.B. White, you are potentially risking your student not passing that quiz, and teachers now are judged on the performance of their students. Their salaries could go down. Their very job security could be at risk.
It's been widely reported already how structured this new education system is. It's also been widely reported that test scores have risen since Miles took over and started incorporating this. So what's the problem with simply buying into that system and effort?
Mm-hmm. And, I still don't have a clear answer for you, Craig. Every single person I've interviewed, dozens over the past couple of months, I asked that question. Some just say they don't trust the test results, that the way they're being calculated this year is conveniently different than they've been calculated in past years. So they say, if last year you had to get 16 right and this year you had to get 10 right, how can you say that so much progress has been made? Others, such as some of the teachers I've interviewed, say, well, it's because we're sneaking around and we're still doing the things that we know we need to do to teach literacy. And when the administrators walk in or the evaluators walk in, we do the dog and pony show. I personally think that some of these changes are good. I mean, and a teacher told me the other day, we can say you can't be a bad or lazy teacher in HISD anymore. Not that we had so many of those, but you can't do that anymore. But the problem is we're losing the great teachers. We're losing the good teachers. We are tying the hands of the effective teachers. That's the problem. So you can look at the scores and even ask, what do those scores even show us? If a kid can pass STAR, does that mean this kid can read on a certain level? Does it mean that they are going to be lifelong readers and learners? And that's my concern. You can teach reading like a technical skill, typing, okay? You can read. Okay, you can decode. There's a lot that goes into reading. It's very complex. But there has to be an emotional connection to books in order to continue to read throughout your school career and your life. How many of us can remember, our fifth grade teacher? I remember my sophomore teacher in high school reading Ethan Frome, and it is like one of the most important experiences of my life, reading Edith Wharton aloud. And it creates a fire inside of you, especially for us writers. And I think it is such a disservice to our young people to deny them of that. I am not saying, let me just clarify, I am not saying that phonics are not important, and phonics have been de-emphasized for too long in this country. Miles and people who believe like he believes think that we need richer content, more rigorous discussion of history and science early. Great, let's do it. More phonics, explicit, systemic instruction of phonics. Great, let's do it. But let's have some time for the joy of reading. Let's have some time for literature, or else what's the point? Why would kids want to continue to do this thing that for some of us who have trouble reading, it is kind of a hard thing to decipher all this weird language. Why would you even want to keep trying to do that if you don't understand the joy or the opportunity or the inspiration that goes with reading?
All right. So Superintendent Miles on Monday responded to your column. And first, I guess we should note he characterized it as an article and you as a reporter, and we should make the distinction. You're a columnist offering an opinion, but that there is reporting within that column. Right. Is that a fair characterization?
Right.
Okay. As I said, he wrote that your column, quote, reveals a fundamental lack of expertise in curriculum instruction and the science of how students learn. He then further shared a statement from the district attributed to him, which called your column intentionally misleading, built solely on emotion and an affinity for outdated and discredited teaching practices. What do you say in reply?
Well, I think some of what I just touched on is what he's trying to say. He's trying to say that because I want, and these teachers, not just me, I am writing what teachers, parents, and children are saying in this piece. It's very heavily reported. It's not just a bunch of opinion. But what he's trying to say is misleading too. He is saying that because I want, and these people want, literature in the classroom, we don't want phonics, or we don't want rich content. How much can you learn in Charlotte's Web about agrarian life, about life and death, about, animals and relationships? That's all background knowledge. That's all really rich. To me, that's worth investing in. And so, no, the science of reading is what he says he follows. I have interviewed one of the pioneers of the science of reading, Marianne Wolfe, who says if you're not using books, if you're not using literature, you're not doing it right. And I'm sorry, but some of the quote books that they listed are spiral-bound teachers' manuals, and I use Bob books that teach my own kids decoding books, and Dot sat on a mat. It has a place in this world, okay? My middle child said, "Mom, what is happening in this story? Who writes this stuff? Who cares if Dot is sitting on a mat?" But there is a place for that kind of practice. But that is not what we're reading to our kids at night. And you have to ask, for families that aren't reading to their kids at night, for families who don't have books in their home, where are they going to get that exposure to literature? To, it's about learning about characters. It's about empathy. It's about socio-emotional development. These teachers are beside themselves. One teacher told me, Mike Miles says that we have lowered our expectations for children, brown and black children especially. She said, before this takeover, I was reading Langston Hughes and Robert Frost to my kindergartners. I was teaching them chess and to code, and we built wax museums. Now, I am reading from a script, and I am assigning worksheets. Who is lowering expectations?
Miles says books are not banned in HISD classrooms, that they are required. I guess I wonder if this is a question of semantics, if this is about how you and he define what is and is not a book. You mentioned a spiral notebook. Well, great literature can be formatted inside a spiral notebook. So what?
Right. That's a teacher's manual. Sure. I mean, you could say, that's why I make a point to say children's literature. I make a point to say, books with characters. In the piece, I really define what I'm talking about there. Storybooks, ones with fanciful illustrations. The problem is we have a lot of nonfiction, fact-based pieces with some of them with appears to be some kind of antiquated AI imagery that's not compelling to kids. The impact on these kids is not like it is when you're reading, Dr. Seuss or C.S. Lewis. It is kids falling asleep, behavioral problems, kids asking to go home, kids telling their parents they don't want to go to school. That tells you the difference between the, quote, books he's talking about and the books I am talking about that can hold a crowd of kindergartners. I have one. I know what he's interested in. And that's another thing, interests. Really great teachers, you may know, Craig, you had a few. Listeners may have had a few. They say, hey, Lisa, what are you interested in? Oh, you really like zebras this week? You really like dinosaurs? My kids are really into dinosaurs. Let's go get some books on dinosaurs. Because when you are reading what you are interested in, wow, it's magic. You want to read, okay? If we're reading about Dot and the Mat, if we are reading about Chicken Little, all that stuff has a place. That is not inspiring. It does not allow teachers, not script readers, does not allow teachers to tailor their lessons for individual children, doesn't allow the children to be seen and heard and inspired. To me, that is still something I want my child to have an experience. And frankly, my child is having that experience in HISD. I thank God every day for his teacher, for the school that he's learning in. I just want that for all children in HISD.
There is a finite amount of time in a school day, and what the district is trying to accomplish does take time, and that time has to be taken away from something. So how do you balance it all out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time that's being spent on, frankly, things that it seems the kids are not retaining. Because if you shove a lot of vocabulary in their faces, but you're not teaching that in a way that repeats it to a certain extent or makes it engaging or use what's called manipulative so that children can hold things in their hands and they can understand, to me, a lot of that time is just being wasted. There is if you talk about efficiency and efficacy, let's do it right the first time, and then maybe you have a little less, that you're covering each day, but you're at least learning it. Because if you're not learning it to begin with, if it's going away, the kids are falling asleep, then how effective is that time anyway?
Lisa Falkenberg is senior columnist with the Houston Chronicle. Lisa, thanks very much.
Thanks, Craig.
That column and Miles' response come just a month after a new law took effect in Texas governing what books could be in public school libraries. Senate Bill 13 shifts oversight of such material from school librarians to parents and school boards by creating parent-led advisory councils and giving school boards the final authority over what's allowed into libraries and classrooms and what must be removed. Such efforts to control what books kids can access in public schools is one of many examples of how politicized public schools have become in recent years, and it's the subject of a new documentary screening this week in Houston called The Librarians.
That was my office. These are 2 books that I was asked to be removed, and I would not remove them.
We were gonna pull books off the shelves, stamp, color purple.
Yep, there's your nudity right there.
Get rid of them. Get rid of them. This book was banned.
I would like to know how the history of the KKK is pornographic.
We have a movement within America that has decided that school boards are now where they want to push their agenda.
This stuff is coming into your schools, and it's probably already there.
Scenes there from the documentary The Librarians, which is screening now through Thursday at Houston's River Oaks Theater. Joining us now to talk about the film is Academy Award-nominated Director Kim Snyder. Kim, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening as we've been talking with Lisa Falkenberg about Houston ISD and how books are used by the district. Does it match or counter what your film presents is happening across the state of Texas?
it was really informative. It definitely is complementary to a lot of what we explore in the film. And what she talked about that was so interesting to me was about the joy and the emotion. And I think something I've been thinking about a lot of why I think the film is hitting a nerve and connecting with a lot of people who remember stories that attracted them when they were small, is that it might have been in my life one of the first times that I experienced a feeling of agency, of independence, of wonder, and being able to make choices about what I was interested in, whether it be dinosaurs or Harriet the Spy. So it definitely, I was glued to her words.
What led you to want to make a film about the fight here in Texas over books in public schools?
Well, it started back in 21 when a state senator at the time, Matt Krause, released this list of 850 books. And I was really taken with this story of a group of librarians that I've now come to know quite well, that were calling themselves the Freedom Fighters with an READ. And they were concerned about this list and started to organize and really hear from librarians, not just across Texas, but well beyond the borders of your state, to say that this was all concerning, and to organize. And so we've been chronicling them for about 4 years now.
And what did you learn that you didn't know going into this project?
Well, I learned that what was being framed as sort of a parental rights issue, that these parental rights had always been there. There were so many librarians stepped forth to say that they had had no challenges prior to the fall of 21 in the prior year or so. And when this list came out, it began a kind of wildfire. And so I learned that a lot of the protocol that had always been in place for parents to have uh, challenges, and there was just such that there had always been a system for parental rights that was there, and this was being brazenly broken in all kinds of ways after the fall of 21. And I think now has escalated to such, it's just permeating so many different aspects of our society that's gone so much beyond the school libraries.
Some school districts, and Houston's an example of this, but there are others, are in some cases doing away with school libraries entirely. Did you hear from librarians about that? And if so, what they have to say?
Absolutely, and not just in Texas. To be clear, the epicenter of the story started in Texas, and then we realized that we wouldn't be doing justice to the issue if we didn't make it national. And so we also spent quite a bit of time in Florida, where some of the same kinds of policies and things were rolling out, and just a lot of emotional reaction from the kids. What we learned was that this, I don't know, movement, if you will, of librarians that were speaking out about this, who were also being threatened, fired, threatened with criminalization. I think that was the most shocking thing to me as a newcomer to the subject, was learning that we really had that the idea of criminalizing librarians for standing up for built-in First Amendment rights was actually on the table. And then we have learned since that this is really happening all throughout the country, and it's not really, it certainly isn't just a partisan issue.
Kim Snyder is the director of the documentary The Librarians. It's screening now through Thursday at Houston's River Oaks Theater. Kim, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.